Gerrymandering and the adverse effects on the American school system. Gerrymandering is a complex topic and will be difficult to cover in a few short minutes. However, it is a side effect of political gain that causes detriment side effects to our school systems, and this is why. Gerrymandering began in Massachusetts in 1812, when Elbridge Gerry approved a redistricting plan to give the political advantage to the Republican Party. It has since been a tool used by political parties to keep their majority rule in the House of Representatives. This process lumps Democratic and Republican voters together in oddly shaped congressional districts. A packed district is drawn to include as many of the opposing party's voters as possible. That helps the governing party win surrounding districts where the opposition strength has been diluted to create the packed district. Cracking does the opposite. It splits up clusters of opposition voters among several districts so that they will be outnumbered in each district. If we look at this map of New York State, the majority of the state is red to represent Republicans, yet we tend to vote Democratic because the blue area are highly populated districts than the surrounding Republican congressional districts. How does this affect the American system, you may ask? Well, when political parties create these congressional districts, the unfortunate side effect is that it creates an economic. How does this affect the American system, you may ask? Well, when political parties create these congressional districts, the unfortunate side effect is that it creates an economic divide. Families are increasingly segregated into communities based on income status, resulting in public schools becoming increasingly segregated by income. As economic segregation within schools increased, the test score gap between high and low income students also increased by nearly 40%. Approximately 56% of New York State school budgets are funded by local property taxes. Given the disproportionate economic status set up by gerrymandering, school districts found in the poorer, usually Democratic districts, are affected the most, while white, rich Republican districts prosper. With such a highly disproportionate share of New York's total K-12 cost, students found in lower economic districts lack proper resources such as textbooks, computers, school supplies, and lab equipment. According to the 2019 census, roughly 40 million Americans are below the national poverty line. The United States is underfunding its K-12 public schools by nearly $150 billion annually, robbing more than 30 million school children of the resources they need to succeed in the classroom. The percentage of students eligible for free or reduced price lunch under the National School Lunch Program provides a proxy measure for the concentration of low-income students within a school. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, 51.5% of public school students are in mid to high poverty schools. Unfortunately, gerrymandering is not something that can be argued. There is an abundance of articles stating the negative effect it can have on low-income communities and thus low-income schools. But there are practically zero articles in favor of the deficits gerrymandering can cause. And currently, no solution to the problem because creating permanent and equally populated congressional districts would not properly represent the populations at play as population levels shift. This is why gerrymandering maps are usually changed by parties during an election year that falls on a census year. Highly populated areas will always outweigh the rural areas in a majority of states, including ours. An increasing negative side effect of this growing rich versus poor gap in the education system is a lack of technological resources for school districts in the time of the pandemic. For over a year now, students, their families, and the surrounding communities have been fighting to provide low-income families with access to Wi-Fi and technology that allows them to access their schoolwork and attend their class via Zoom. This has provided an inequitable exchange of learning for low-income school populations as students stuck at home are falling behind in their studies, which they have a legal obligation to. Policymakers will need to address funding gaps through equitable school financing, where funding and grants are allocated to support the needs of low-income students in order to improve the range of student outcomes. Historically speaking, this has been an uphill battle, but the pandemic has brought to light many societal vulnerabilities. I would attempt to address the issue through letters written by students, petitions and rallies organized by school officials and members of the community. These call to actions are influential pieces to request a vote to eliminate property taxes or ask for the state and federal government to provide more funding rather than relying on the school community taxes and create an equal funding system, unlike the disproportionate one we see in many states currently. In some cases, such as Indiana and Michigan, the state took on a larger role in the administration of the property tax revenues, shifting from local property tax reliance to state property tax oversight. The state sets the tax rates, giving maximum or minimum for local school districts. When Indiana made this transition, the state eliminated a number of special local property tax levies and replaced the lost revenue with an increase in state sales and use tax rates. What drove my interest in this topic was the complexity of the issue and the trickling butterfly effect caused by American politics. It is not a simple topic that can be solved by a single teacher or a single state bill, and will take a major stand to make a change. This experience teaches me that nothing in the political, economic, or simply the adult world is easy. There are many solutions to the problem, but those solutions also have consequences like unequal representation in both the Senate and House of Representatives. Many states have attempted to solve the gap in school funding, but New York State, one of the richest states in the US, yet they provide only 30% of the funding to public schools and has only grown increasingly worse since the pandemic has begun. There are many districts in New York State that can be used as an example of the inequity in education between low and income schools. Rochester City School District has one of the highest turnovers for both teachers and superintendents, while families battled to win the lottery and enter their students into charter schools so their children can receive a proper education, while schools not even 20 minutes down the street are swimming in funding. Schenectady and Niskayuna school districts are also prime examples of how gerrymandering can create polarizing economies. As an educator, I will use my position to provide the education my students deserve that provides both equality and equity in the classroom. I will be an advocate against issues that create a disservice to my school community, such as a lack of funding and resources, by bringing light to them, to the people who can make a change. It is my job to show my students how to advocate for themselves and become a part of the community to promote issues that are important to them.